Whoa. Okay. Well, I guess I will go live here now. For some reason, my theme music would not play. Ecamm Live having a little problem today. Hopefully, I am live. If you're there, audience, let me know. Give me an indication. I'm not seeing you there. Let me check um, on my Facebook. Oh, Dave Fennoy live. Well, yes, there I am, and yes, there people are. Okay, little technical difficulties getting started today. I updated my Ecamm Live, and it's not wanting to play right now, but we're gonna make it play. It would not play my theme song. What the hell's up with that? Dave Fennoy here. Happy Wednesday. Couple of things. I do private lessons and whatnot. If you'd like to do that, visit me at davefenoy.com. You can sign yourself up. If you want to do a bunch of lessons, great deals on my Christmas special now for 5 and 10 at a time. And all of my Ask Dave Fennoy Anythings, this freebie that I do every Wednesday, you can find at Dave Fennoy Voiceover Training on YouTube. And go there, cost you nothing, and you can relive everything we have going on. I've decided to start giving little tips just right at the top of this. So today's tip is about breathing. I have a question for you. When you're just talking to your friends, family, whoever, do you think about where you breathe? No, you just do it. And so many of us in voiceover, we have something that's going to be a long sentence. We're trying to get through it, and we go, wind up with a big breath. And I've actually discovered from a gig I had one time 2 things. One, it automatically puts you in a place that's not a natural place to talk. And 2, it doesn't help your breath. That big breath that you take in actually wants to go out faster than if you just start talking. Hey, how you doing? I'm Dave Fennoy, and I'm rattling on, and I'm still on the same breath, and I'm still talking. And actually, I snuck a breath in there you didn't even know. So do yourself a favor. When you've got that piece of copy, I don't care how much it is, how long the sentence is, don't do the and then go. Let that breath out and just start. I promise you, you'll sound better, and your breathing overall will be better. All right, now with that, let me bring on my guest. Hey, there he is, Tim Tippets. Wow, you got a good camera there, man.
Well, thank
Tim
you.
is the voiceover tech guru. And well, I'm going to let you tell about yourself, Tim. How did you get started in this wacky business? Because you're also a voiceover actor.
Well, first of all, it's the Dave Fennoy show. Hey, it's Dave Fennoy. I figured I'd give you a little something there.
Well, okay,
So
I'll
it's
take it.
better than nothing, man. So yeah, I got started in this business. I used to be a live session player, slash in LA, growing up in the business in Hollywood. And eventually I was working with Herbie Hancock to recreate hit songs to teach people how to sing. And that's where I got all of my audio engineering skills. This was back in the 90s. But of course, being in studios, I'd go to the audio engineers and just ask them everything, right?
Uh-huh.
Plus, as a guitarist, as a teen, I was making my own special effects pedals. And
Oh,
so I was
wow.
already, yeah, I was pretty technical as it was. And my mom actually, when I was very young, used to go to garage sales and bring home like broken tape recorders and record players and all sorts of stuff. And I'd tear them apart and make like paddle boats out of them and all sorts of other stuff. So I've just always had that mindset. And so then I got signed by All Nations Music. Did a maxi disc release along with a famous band called Autograph, a reissue of their song. And from there, I got signed by All Nations Music and went to Florida where my partner had moved to. That didn't work out so well. I won't go into the details. It was just he was trying to live a different lifestyle than I was. I'm a pretty straightforward, clean dude, and he was being not so much that. So Don't get me wrong, I'm not the Virgin Mary, but I'm just saying, like, it was some pretty extreme stuff. So I decided to go into back into the construction business, because if you're in LA and you're a musician, you're probably in construction, highly likely.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I went and did the climbing the corporate ladder thing and decided to, go and do that and become an executive. And then one day I just stopped and I said, "What the hell am I doing? What the hell am I doing here? I got to get back to my roots." So when I did, I got into back into composing and performing for film and TV. With the tools that were available at that time, they were so much far beyond what I was doing when I was working with Herbie, because back then I was using 8 tracks and samplers to get the job done, and literally recreating every single part, from the drums to the vocals to the guitar, the whole 9 yards. So when I came into the modern world and I saw all of these things that were available, like if you saw all of the samplers that I have here locally, just with my keyboard and inside along with my plugins, it's literally embarrassing. But it allows me to write things for
Hey, you do scores for TVs and movies.
yeah, for TV and film. The movie 300.
I do.
Yeah, all the stuff you didn't hear in there, that was me.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
composed all of that.
The ancient
But
Greeks at
yeah,
Thermopylae.
but typically I do short films and television commercials, stuff like that. But I also do pro VO. I voice for a lot of the usual suspects. We don't need to go through that list. Not trying to impress anyone here, but what was
Actually, I
impressive-
want you to impress people.
Here-
will
here's
probably impress them with just your knowledge of studios. But
Okay,
who are
I've
some
done
of your
movie
clients?
trailers. Yeah, Nissan, Volvo, Ford, Boeing. The list goes on and on. Craftsman, blah blah blah.
Oh yeah.
But at any rate, what ended up happening at that time is I got called out by someone who was a prominent figure in the voiceover business as the VO Tech guru, and I was his VO Tech guru. And so people started calling me that. I hate the name because it sounds like I'm elevated.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I
Well,
used
I mean,
it.
the thing is, man, you got to understand from my point of view. I mean, I'm aware of my abilities, but I'm also pretty humble about it. I take compliments with thank yous, and kind of try to leave it there. But I'm not very good at talking up myself. Let's put it that way.
Okay. Well, you know
I try
what, Tim, I understand that, but let me talk you up a little bit.
Okay.
I've known you. I haven't known you all that well over the years, but
Yeah.
we've been friendly acquaintances. We've been on some panels. We've been at some conventions together.
Yep.
And recently, I called on you to help me with my studio, and all I can say is, wow.
Love
My
it.
studio
Love it.
already sounded good. But some of the things that you helped me with just made every recording I do that much better. And at the same time, it's still me. It's not something you're going to notice unless you hear side by side. You're not going to go, oh yeah, there's a lot of compression on that, or he's made his voice deeper. It's just cleaner and has a little more presence.
Well, that's the thing. The job of an audio tech guy who knows what they're doing, or gal, by the way, there are plenty of them out there,
Oh yeah.
and growing, thankfully. But our job here is to make you sound the most like Dave Fennoy. And since I know you in person, and I've listened to your voice, I know what you sound like. I know your voice print.
Yeah.
And so my job is to get that 416 to shine, so to speak, rather than just let it be a 416, because a 416 on its own, while it's completely capable of picking up pretty much all of the sonic information that's out there, it doesn't do a very good job of just sounding like a great mic. So my job is to get you sounding, to get those nice lows that you have, and the way your voice cuts through, like a Cipriano, for instance, is a good example. I've been accused of the same thing. You have tonal ranges in your voice where not only do you have that nice low end, but you have that cut, right?
Yeah.
And if we're on a mic and we're on just a straight pre that's not presenting that cut properly, then that needs to be properly represented. And so that's my job. So that's why we got you on the Manly with your Apollo, and got you set up the way that we did, because you were previously on another plugin. I think it was the Avalon 737.
737, which
Yeah,
I've been
and
a 737 guy for a long time. I still I think it's a great piece of equipment, but
It
the
truly
way,
is.
yeah, the way
Yeah.
you hooked me up with the Manly is like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, the Manly to me, I kind of jokingly and half not so jokingly refer to it as the one plugin to rule them all. A lot of people are fans of the Avalon. I totally get it. It's been a staple in the industry for a very long time, and it's easy to understand. But the Manly Vox Box in real life is a $4,600 rack unit. This plugin is a faithful emulation of that, but there's a reason why it's a $4,600 unit, and there's also a not so hidden thing about the Manly Vox Box, and that's in the word Vox Box.
Oh,
It's meant
it's made for the
specifically
voice.
for vocal. It's
Yeah,
made for the voice, and that makes a huge difference. The 737 can be used for a range of instruments, but
yeah.
yeah, but thank you for the compliment. I appreciate that. But anyway, so this Viotech Guru thing, which initially I just kind of envisioned this person walking down the mountain with tablets in their hand, thou shalt not, and all this other kind of stuff. I shied away from it. But people kept referencing me as Viotech Guru, and so it just became a brand, and it grew. And as you know, in my course, I have over 700 students plus and growing fast. 450 in the private student Facebook group, which can be thought of as direct tech
Well,
support
let's talk
for you.
about that. We're getting a little ahead
Sure,
of ourselves.
sure.
I mentioned in the promo that you have a voiceover tech course.
Mhm.
Um, Tell me what that tech course entails.
Well, I'll have to back up just a little bit to tell you. So when I first started putting out videos on YouTube, I failed to read the blitz on that. Just some simple things: input levels, output levels, mic techniques, etc. And then I created a one-on-one course called Audition Ready, which isn't about Adobe Audition, by the way. It's about getting you ready to audition like a pro. Well, pretty soon that overtook my life, and so what I decided to do was to disseminate all of this information, everything that I know, perfect it, and then put it into an online course where you learn everything that you need to know about EQ, compression, downward expansion, and well beyond that.
Okay,
Um,
okay, wait a minute. You got one
mhm.
that got me, and I bet it got a lot of other people. What is downward expansion?
I figured that would come up. So downward expansion is very much like having an auto engineer who is writing the gain levels on your input levels into your recording software, aka your DAW, your digital audio workstation. Okay, so imagine a scenario where I was smart enough to know exactly when you were going to stop talking, and I immediately turned down your gain. Well, your noise floor would go down, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would.
Now, if I also was smart enough to know when you were going to start talking and turned your gain back up, then your noise floor wouldn't be in play because it would be just your voice. So what
Yes.
this emulates with this plugin is it emulates a lower noise floor. Not emulates, it is a lower noise floor without you being able to notice. So instead of constantly cutting and pasting in room tone, you literally get to silence the sections in between words, all the incidental noises like this or whatever it is that we might do, drop a pen, etc. You get to get rid of all that and not have to worry about it and edit like a ninja, what we
Yeah.
call edit like a ninja, which is just speed through it, right? So you can silence this part. There's something that we do where we normalize down to minus 70 dB to quickly highlight something and reduce a breath, so the breath is still there, so we don't hear the downward expander going into the breath. Because sometimes when you have a catch-up breath, that downward expander, this engineer we talked about, this
Mm-hmm.
virtual engineer, he doesn't have time to turn it all the way down, and you don't want it to go into a void all of a sudden. That would sound
Yes.
weird, right?
Yeah.
So we take care of breaths that way. But that's what a downward expander is. So EQ handles the sonic information in our voice, the frequencies, etc., whether it's increasing or decreasing bass, the high end, the mids, etc. Compression can be thought of as automatic volume control, right? And all we really do is, and I impress this on everyone, when we talk about compression, it needs to be responsible compression. We do not want to crush
Use
the
compression responsibly.
use it responsibly, children. Yes. Just say no to heavy compression.
Yes.
And so what we're seeing as a result of a lot of information that's out there on YouTube is a lot of musicians who are taking a musical approach, and hey, bless them for trying to help people out. But this is a completely different animal. When I first got into this, I thought to myself, hey, no problem, I got this because of all my experience as a musician and engineer. And then I went in and I voiced, and I came out of my booth and I listened, and I went, man, I totally don't got this. Like this is a completely different thing. It's just me and my mic, and that's it. So I went into the cave for a couple of weeks, came out with the answer, and started improving upon that. And that's what the course is all about. By the way, if I may, quick plug:
Yeah.
VOTechGuru.com/courses is where you can find the free EQ lesson, so you can see how it is that I teach. I actually speak to human beings. It's not rocket surgery, as I like to say, and it's not going to be over your head. So if you're
Okay, well,
interested,
because
check
I'm
it out.
going to say some of the things you've been talking about already, I'm hanging in there with you,
I
but
hear you.
but there's a few times I'm like, huh, what, huh?
Mhm.
And I imagine there are a few of us who are checking this out that aren't as tech savvy, and that the terminology, some of it doesn't make sense, or we just don't know quite what it is.
Yeah.
And I want to start bringing on a few questions here that will engender some other conversation. But
But
once again,
before you do, can I address just one thing?
absolutely,
I have a lot of people who approach me and say, "You don't understand. I know nothing about tech. I'm the least techie person in the world." If you go to that page, you're going to see a lot of people stating, "I never thought I could ever understand this stuff, and I
yeah,
now understand it." Right?
yeah.
So I totally get it. Everything that I'm saying is like, "Well, Tim, that's easy for you to say." Right? But I do get in your head what's in my head and kick the tech gremlin out of your life for good. So
Well, that sounds good, and yet it could sound a little scary. I get what's in
I
my head
understand.
in your head, but
I understand.
we'll talk about that later on. Bernard Tanner here. Hello, men. How is everything doing? I'm very interested in building or having a soundproof sound studio and booth. Please, contact me at. Oh, I thought it was going to be a question. Well, let's talk about that booth. Booths are generally not soundproof.
That is correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
except
They're
maybe
generally,
yours. I've heard about your booth.
yeah, the Judge. So the reason it was called the Judge is because when I built my second booth, being a construction expert, again, this is part of the, yeah, I got this, and then, yeah, I totally don't got this thing. I rebuilt my booth because I moved forward. Honestly, if I'm going to call it anything, I would call it a mix of ignorance and arrogance. And so I built that booth thinking, man, I'm set. And I was hearing all sorts of things. I live around maybe 60 to 70 yards from an area where a lot of 18 wheelers cross over. And it just so happens in that road, we have a couple of whoop de doos in it. So these particular trucks just do, 18 times in a row, right? Or half that, nine, whatever. Um, and that was a big problem. So I got into the science of it, mechanical separation, stuff called green glue, all this other stuff, and I built the right booth. And then one day, my wife told me, "Hey, they're finally here to cut down the tree that had been tangling up in our electrical wires." And I said, "Great. What an awesome opportunity for me to go downstairs and really test this thing out." So I went down there and I voiced for 20 minutes, and I had made sure that there were plenty of pauses in between. And then I came up after 20 minutes angry, and I said, "Damn it." And she goes, "What's the problem?" I said, "When are they going to get started?" Because I'm in an area of the world where we typically have, three guys standing around watching one guy work. Right. So I figured that. So anyway, she said, "Are you kidding?" I said, "No, why?" She said, "Not only did they cut down the tree, but they threw it in the chipper and they've been out here for 5 minutes." And so I said, "That's not possible." So I went downstairs and I figured I must have had my headphones turned down or something. But I listened to the entire thing, even the pauses, and nothing came through. And we're talking 40 feet away from me. So
Wow.
nothing can beat a custom build if it's done correctly, man. I don't care what people say on YouTube. I don't care what kind of booth someone buys. Unless you're in a cement bunker that's, 3 feet thick underground, then maybe it's a discussion. But if it's done correctly, you can beat the snot out of noise mitigation. It's just a fact.
Well, there's a description. Beat the snot out of. But anyway,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
so you would say building your own is always a better idea than buying a booth if your build is right.
Yes, you have to have qualified people to do the build, and I consult worldwide on that. Usually, it's someone who has a carpenter in their family or a general contractor, and then I'll get them in the know on what to do. And
Yeah.
then from there, the execution's actually pretty easy.
Okay. Now, What's a big mistake that voiceover people make when they're trying to put together their home studios?
Well, one of the mistakes that I see a lot is thinking that they can just voice in an open room and just not have very much acoustic value in place. A good example of that would be, as well treated as my mixing room is here. I mean, anyone would consider this a good voicing room, and I have voiced here. I voiced for Volvo, Mercedes Benz, a few other heavy hitters from here, but that's with mic technique. Now, if I use the traditional advice that's given about mic technique, which is to get, hang loose away, maybe even have it pointed, down towards you, and I'm reading my copy down here, even in this room, this does not sound anywhere near as good as this is going to sound.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
And so and that's because I'm voicing in a box. So when old advice is given to Dave, the paradigm shift occurred a long time ago with a lot of us voice actors working from home. But now that we have this huge tragedy, my life since March has been hell, right? Because I've been helping people with presets, and when I say hell, I want to qualify that. I'm here to help people. Okay, so even though I've been busy, it makes my heart sore when I help people and then they're suddenly getting jobs or their problem has suddenly been fixed, right?
yeah.
So just want to qualify that statement. But
And when
that,
you say soar, it's
yeah, as in
SOAR.
soar like an eagle, as in soar
Yeah.
like an eagle, yeah.
Not soar like
Um,
ow.
yeah, no, I should probably qualify it by saying I feel I have a lot of karma bucks saved up in my bank and I feel good about
Oh,
that.
you're
So
so you're
that
you're
probably
definitely
speaks
going
for
to
it.
heaven, unless
I
you
well,
screw it up somehow
well,
way after
well,
this.
I'll figure out a way to screw it up. I'm sure one of these days. Nothing too bad so far, but anyway, so yeah, when it comes to old approaches to new systems, it doesn't work. Like we may see a lot of these open-ended booths, or and I'm not going to name any names, but we get people who are speaking into these acoustic shells, and one end of it is completely open, and they're expecting to compete with someone like you, who has a 5x7 incredible booth that is the acoustics. I've heard them are incredible in there, and the way it works is, here's how the numbers break down. Dave, I don't know how much casting you've done, but I've done my share. Okay, especially as an audio engineer when I'm requested to cast. So the first, let's say there are 100 people, or let's use percentages. Okay, the first 80% that come in, they're just going in the trash can. I'm not trying to be mean. I'm just telling the truth. Okay, because there's something wrong with it. All right.
Yeah,
80 to 90% is what I like to call the wince zone, which makes me wince, where I'm like, ooh, too bad, because the person is obviously used to working on one side of the glass or the other. Okay. They're either talent or they're audio person. And then we have people who float in your band, which is the 90 to 100%, where the read is killer, the sound is killer. And when people talk about how 10% of the people get 90% of the work,
it's
that's
true.
just the math. That's just
Yeah.
the math. It's the way it works out. So the smartest thing that you can do is to position yourself correctly, and get yourself professional help, or educate yourself, and make sure that you're getting the right information so that you can implement everything correctly. It's as simple as that.
Speaking of that, I'm gonna get a little advertise you a little bit here. Sophia Cruz, a good friend of mine, great bilingual voice actor. I
Mm-hmm.
had the pleasure of getting one-on-one in person coaching with Tim. He also set me up on the Manly. Buy his course. Totally recommend it. Now, I'm going to give a caveat here. The reason I have you on isn't for people to buy your course. I
Yeah.
encourage them to, because I think it's good.
Yep.
But we're giving free information here. We are hoping to enlighten voice actors with this Ask Dave Fennoy Anything. I should
Mm-hmm.
ask Dave Fennoy anything with whoever he's with or something now. But
And to be honest, I didn't even know you were going to bring the course up. I just You asked and I said yes.
well,
So
I when we talk about this pandemic, this horrible thing that has happened,
mhm.
300,000 people gone, so much work, so many people who can't work anymore, and those of us in this particular industry in voiceover, we can't go out to studios. I have been to 4 studios outside my home since we went into lockdown,
Mhm.
and one was just the other day, yesterday, because it's Tuesday. Uh, So people need home studios. As a matter of fact, they have to have them. It's a must.
Yep.
And one of the biggest problems is, how do you set that up for a price that you can afford that sounds good? I tell people all the time, there's more than one way to skin this cat. You know, if you've got all the money in the world, you can buy the booth, you can build the booth. But if you don't, what are some of the solutions somebody might have to get a decent sound in their home?
Well, man, I hate saying that it depends, okay? But I'm
But it
going to say
does.
that. But I'm going to give you some great qualifiers, okay? So first of all, home studio could mean anything. That could mean a mic in a corner of a room as far as your potential clients go. So I've been pushing personal professional studio, personal pro studio on people when they're advertising and they're marketing. Just wanted to get that out of the way. Um, One of the things that I've been have happening quite a bit because I've had so many people with urgency is they can't afford a five, six, $10,000 booth, but they are in a relatively quiet area. So what they do is they buy vocal booth to go blankets and build a PVC booth, and it's quiet enough so that when they're in there, and I swear to you this is true, okay, usually when you see a vocal booth that's prefabricated, it has some sort of relatively thin foam acoustic package in it. Those acoustic packages are not good for handling low frequencies. Dave, you talked about your 4x4 booth earlier. You know what it is that I'm talking about,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
We get these build up standing waves where it's equidistant and it's not handling a low end voice like yours. Even mid range voices, same thing. All of these sounds go out, they hit the walls at the same distance, and they come back at the mic at the same time and cause this wolfing sound, which is this kind of woo, woo, woo
Boop, boop,
sound.
boop,
Right?
boop. Yeah.
Exactly, right? So when we have someone who goes out and spends, $100, $200 on PVC, puts the thing together, buys a few blankets, believe it or not, I have been blown away time and again by how much better those booths sound in a quiet area,
Yeah.
qualifying it,
Yeah.
okay, in a quiet area than your typical whisper room.
Yeah.
Much
I,
better,
I,
much
uh,
better.
I had Joe Cipriano on a number of weeks ago, and we were talking about booths. Now, he has a studio bricks at his house here in LA. He and his wife have
Mhm,
a condo in Florida. And
mhm.
in his condo in Florida, he did just what you're saying. He did a vocal booth to go. It's those audio blankets um, on PVC. And I said, well, which sounds better? And what he said was, I really can't tell the difference.
Mhm.
So you don't have to spend the $10,000 for the studio bricks. If when you don't have it, you might want to have that at some point because you got a camera in there and you've got a client. It's going to look a lot cooler than those blankets. But
Yeah,
when you're just looking for the right sound, you're talking about getting away for what, about $300?
yeah, maybe 300 to 500, but a cool look doesn't pay the bills, right? It's all about
Cool
the
look does
performance.
not pay the bills.
No, it
Uh,
doesn't.
but
And in fact,
but
yeah,
by the same token, you want to be as professional looking as you can afford to be.
yeah. And there are plenty of people who are now lining their prefabricated vocal booths with sound blankets
Yeah.
because it simply sounds better, either panels or sound blankets. And I was with Joe when he was at VO Atlanta and said that he needed to match his studio sound and his Apollo. Could I help him out? And so he had an LA 4A and I don't remember what else he was running in his home studio, but what we did is we tuned that Apollo to sound just like his home studio, so that when he's on the road, he calls it MacGyvering. I call it the sip tent. Um, but what
The
he does
sip
is he
tent.
goes in he goes in a hotel room. You probably seen him do this on somewhere social media, but he throws a blanket down on top of the work desk, and then he takes the ironing board, sets that up, props it up, puts pillows on both sides, puts a duvet over the top, and right there at VO Atlanta, he voiced a thing live through his 4G card direct to the studio for. He had his 416 with him and the Apollo.
That's interesting. I don't put the blanket down. I
Mhm.
take it one of the. I'm always asking the maids for. Can I get some extra towels, please? So I put a
Yep.
couple towels down, and
Hmm.
if they have a luggage rack, I'll put the luggage rack there,
Hmm.
and the pillows, top, sides, round the back with more towels,
Yep.
and even towels inside the pillows,
Yeah.
or and it
Yeah.
makes just a great booth.
Yeah,
Uh,
whatever it takes to get the boom out of your voice, because we can't afford to have
yeah,
the rest of the room coming back in there.
yeah,
And I was there with Joe. He voiced one for Kiss FM, I believe, Disney, and then Star Wars. And then just he said, "How does it sound?" And right then they said, "It's great as always." So, if you do have this knowledge about, the tech knowledge, and you do know how to do this and be able to
yeah.
to get to the signal and all the noise that's out there, because everyone has an opinion on, on what to do. And hey, look, I get it. There are a lot of right answers out there, but as it goes for me, I'm only interested in the best right answers. I'm all about best practices
Yeah,
and
yeah.
bringing those all together for everyone. So that's my
Got
thing.
a comment question here, Nathan
Mhm.
Noakes. Can normalize be a good substitute for compression? If not, does twisted wave have compression? I'll answer the
Twisted,
second part. Twisted wave does have compression.
yeah, Twisted Wave does have compression, and it uses Apple's native UA
Yeah,
plugins to do that. It's easy enough to use. However, if you're not setting up the attack and release times, I realize I'm speaking alien right now, just getting it out there. If you don't set that up properly, it's not going to work properly. Normalizing and compression are two completely different things. The only thing that you're doing with normalizing is you're bringing your levels, your very largest peak, to its expected standard. And currently, the standard, depending on who you're talking to, is minus 3 dB.
there you
Okay.
go.
Now, this is something that I recently addressed in a podcast that I did, so I might as well say it here too, to get the word out. So, some agents, some P2P sites are saying, "Hey, send in your audio at 1 dB versus minus 3 dB, normalized 2." Okay. Now, not to be confused with RMS normalization. That is something that is done for audiobooks, and it does average out the audio, the loudness of the audio. But if you're auditioning with RMS normalization, I recommend you stop, because it sucks the dynamics out of it. We could talk about that for hours. Let's just talk about peak normalization. So, peak normalization looks at the loudest thing that you did during your VO. It sees what level it's at. Let's say it's at -6. Okay. And you say normalize the audio to minus 3 dB. All it's doing is it's saying, okay, the loudest thing that was said was at -6 dB. I'm going to boost that 3 dB to get to the target that was requested, but I'm going to take all of the other audio up with it 3 dB. That's all normalization does. That's it, period. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, is minus 1 dB louder than minus 3 dB? Yes. Is it incredibly louder? No. So here's the question that you have to ask yourself. Let's say that there are two, we'll take Dave, for instance, right? We have two Daves. One is not quite as talented as the other. All right. That seems impossible, but let's just for a moment here think about this. Okay. One's not quite as good as the other Dave Fennoy. Now, which would you rather be? The Dave Fennoy that we know today, coming in at minus 3 dB, normalizing to minus 3 dB, okay? Or the Dave Fennoy that's not so hot, sucking at 2 dB higher,
At being louder.
being louder at sucking.
Yeah.
So if you're being told to send in your audio at minus 1 dB, you're assuming an awful lot. You're assuming that all talent are equal. Okay. And I can tell you for sure, I've sent in plenty of things at minus 3 dB, and I have never heard back from anyone saying, hey, you should be, sending your stuff in at -1. And besides, as an
You know,
audio engineer,
I,
I
I,
need I need that headroom anyway, that 3
yeah.
dB of headroom. You're going to annoy me if you send me a final product. Maybe for auditioning, that's one thing. But if you send me a final project at -1 dB, I got to lower it to -3 dB to make headroom in my mix.
Yeah. I've
Yeah.
noticed that since we're all in home studios now, a lot of my, especially video game clients, want you to be recording between -12 and -6.
Perfect.
So you can bump it up to -3, because the dynamic range is so great in video games.
Hmm.
If you're trying to record a little higher, ordinarily you might be trying to hit about -6 to -3. But
Yep.
with video games, the dynamics, you'll be pegging into the red,
Hmm.
and that's the thing you don't want to do. I have
Well, I mean, it's okay if you go into the red once in a while, but
a
we now
peg.
have okay. So let me clarify this. First of all, the reason that you want to voice at -12 to -6 dB is because it's so close to -3 dB already. You want to be able to hear your recording levels to see if you have any problems in the background. If you're coming in and peaking at -22, and a lot of people have this misunderstanding, they say, well, I record at -22 because my noise floor is lower now. Okay.
Hmm,
Well, at the end, you have to normalize that. And don't forget, whatever the difference is between your loudest peak and that target of -3 dB,
that's
all of
going
that
up
noise
too.
floor, yeah, all that noise floor is going to go up with it. And you won't discover that you had problems in the background until you normalize.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So when it comes to voicing, get your peaks somewhere averaging around -6 to -12 dB. If you go into the red, that's fine. If you go to 0, that's not fine. That's at the very top of the red.
Yeah,
Okay. And
yeah.
that means you're clipping, which essentially what that comes down to is that's pain for the recording software, in the same way that in the real world we don't use that negative scale, right? We use a positive scale because dB for us is infinite, right? Like
Yes.
if a planet exploded, the dB level would be insane, right? So we have to have an infinite scale. But if you were standing next to something at 140 dB, which is super loud, that's when your ear would experience pain. For the software, 0 is pain, and so that's why we use a negative scale.
Ah, you know what? I didn't know that. Thank you for that.
Well, you're
Got a
welcome.
question here from Megan Sullivan. Hey, Megan, how you
Mhm.
doing? I have Audacity and have a heck of a time getting rid of background noise without making it sound like I'm underwater. It's rough.
Hmm. Okay, so I would like to know, first of all, if she is using the noise cancellation feature inside of Audacity, which can be a problem because it can introduce all sorts of artifacts. What's happening there is when you give it a sample of what noise is, it then says, okay, got it. Everything within this frequency range is noise, therefore I'm going to remove it. Well, that affects your EQ print because it's removing frequencies from your voice that you may not want. And if you set it too heavily, then it can start introducing little like tweeting stuff in the background, like alien voices. Okay. Now, the other problem may be that you just need to get your noise under control. All right. Now, also a handle for you, which is easy enough to set up on my VOTech Guru YouTube channel. Every once in a while, I'll release something from the course, a little something, and I released how to use RX Elements, D-Click, and D-Noise. Often that plugin alone, which is on sale for $29 right now until the 31st. So go grab it if you don't have it. You need it. It's $129. It does not affect your EQ print at all. It takes care of all sorts of clicks. I mean, it is absolutely fantastic. And then watch the video on how to use it. And that may handle your problem right there. But be careful of taking samples of noise and telling the software, hey, this is what noise is, so please remove it, because it really could mess up your EQ print as well as introduce some things you don't want.
So you don't want too much of a good thing.
That's right. Too much of a good thing is always bad, right?
Question here from Christy Ferris. If we take your class, will we need to buy the equipment you suggest first? Like, I have some stuff, like an Audio Tech 2020 mic.
Well, an Audio Tech 2020 mic is fine. I've helped plenty of people with that. To answer your question, if you go to votechguru.com and then go to the services section, you're going to hear a person on an MXL 990, which is a $120 mic, into a Scarlett 2i2 who was off mic. All right. And I got him on mic and then got him properly set up with an EQ rack. And then he suddenly started working. And you're going to hear a dramatic difference between those two samples. Okay. So
Cool.
votechguru.com/services and listen to that sample. And I think that'll answer your question. But overall, I've worked with every type of equipment that you can imagine. Two things have been happening to me lately, especially since the crisis. One is people contacting me because they lost their jobs, and this looks like quote unquote fun to them, or they've always been interested in it. And of
Huh,
course,
the lazy way, the lazy man's way to riches.
right. So I want to say, well, why don't you just become a professional race car driver while you're at it, and a professional, lead guitarist, etc. Because as we all know, everyone who's probably watching this right now, it takes a lot of hard work and
Oh
dedication
yeah,
to
yeah.
get where you need to be. All right. So
And to
50% of the
stay where
people,
you need to be.
and to thank you, and to stay where you need to be. On that note, as you get these larger jobs, upgrade, upgrade, upgrade. Just keep improving your situation, because the better you position yourself to win. You know, Dave, it's like I've always said, and I'm sure you've heard this before. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. Okay,
Absolutely.
that's the
And
bottom.
just from the being a business, I always think of myself more of as an artist, but I'm a business too.
Hmm.
And a good business is going to invest in better equipment when they have the money to invest in better equipment.
That's how
Uh,
they grow.
yeah,
That's how they
got
grow.
something from Lonnie Manila. Many auditions request you record and slate your equipment, but would that entail recording somehow with compression in real time? Not familiar with the plugin you're talking about and how to implement. One client always requests we record at negative 17 dB. Isn't that ridiculous?
That is ridiculous. I don't know why someone would come in. That sounds like a filmmaker to me. To be honest with you, because I agree with filmmakers out in the field where they say that you should be peaking somewhere around minus 18. Because when we're in a filming environment, and Dave, you know this because you've been a film actor before, when they have those 416s overhead, anything could go wrong. We could have a car go by that has a backfire or something like that,
Yeah.
right? Or an explosion is too loud or whatever, and we don't have the headroom in the meter to be able to get to where we need to be. So when you're filming on location, I agree with that. So that might be a filmographer who's telling you, hey, we want you to peak out at minus 17 dB, or it might be someone who just doesn't know what it is that they're talking about. Okay. But bottom line is, I don't think this is the first time I've ever been asked for someone to slate the equipment that they have as well. This is the first time I've ever heard of
Well,
that.
I can tell you that is happening more now than ever before. I
Wow.
started noticing it about a month in. Once we realized, oh, this is not going to be 3 weeks or 4 weeks before we're back to business,
Hmm.
um, I started getting auditions that would say, let us know what equipment you have. And I felt like, well, wait a minute, they should know what I've got. But
In
okay,
in
and
the actual audio though, in the audio when you're slating.
well, no, they don't. Not necessarily. I think
Oh,
sometimes they
oh,
will
oh.
ask people to tell us what equipment you have, maybe,
Okay.
but they want to know. I would never. As a matter of fact, the first couple of times I did, I said, "Well, I'm working in this booth and I've got this
Hmm.
microphone, so forth and so on."
Okay.
Now I have just created a page
Hmm.
that has. All the equipment that I use and what their choices are in microphones and so forth,
Smart.
and I just
Smart.
send that.
Okay.
Um,
I misunderstood. I thought that that was in the slate. But
No,
let
well,
me.
they actually have that. It's not so much in the slate. I think that when I did it, I would do it after the fact. I do the audition, then I tell you
Oh, I
what it
see.
is.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. All right. Well, let me answer the question. Okay. Because the bottom line is this: when we talk about affected audio, if I am on target with removing the boxiness from my voice from my booth because I've targeted it correctly, the engineer is going to not isn't going to want that boxiness in the tone to begin with.
Yeah.
All right. If I'm airing out the top end more like this is why we like the airy angelic sound of a boys choir is because it has that nice airy sound. If I'm warming up the bottom end to make it sound more expensive, which after all is the goal, okay, we want a more expensive sound. Do we want to push the envelope to where it's print ready? Well, no, not necessarily. But do we want to get rid of all of the things that the engineer does not want? Sure. But how do we identify what those things are? Well, first of all, we've got some easy ones. The engineers don't want noise in the background. We all know that. The engineers want decent acoustics. But we have so many people who are, again, going on YouTube or have gotten a setup from Uncle Bob, who was a gearhead back in the 70s or whatever, and he used to compress vocals at 10 to 1. So why not voiceover or whatever? It's too heavy handed, right? So what ends up happening is a lot of these auditions come in and they look like railroad tracks, right? The dynamic range has just been sucked completely out of them. But when you know what you're doing or you have someone who knows what they're doing working with you have to remember the audio engineer does not have the benefit of listening to what it sounded like before and what it sounds like now. All they know is you made your booth sound less like a booth. You made your inexpensive preamp sound more expensive, all right? And you mimicked better mic control with responsible compression. All right. And that's the bottom line. I have had many producers contact me because I'm strong on SEO. So every once in a while, I get these emails that say, "Hey, you have the job." Okay, and so we go through the budget and all that, and then because they haven't worked with me before, I'll get, "Hey, and make sure you send your audio in raw." Well, knock on wood, I have not once ever sent in my audio raw, but I also have not once had anyone come back to me and say, "We told you to send in your audio raw."
Yeah.
Okay. The comments I get back during a live session at the end of the session or from the email is, "Hey man, it sounds great. What the heck are you running over there?" Okay. So if you're getting rid of the things that you know the engineer doesn't want, you actually know what you're doing, or you have someone helping you, a heavy hitter who really does know what they're doing, then you are going to burn the competition, the majority of them,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gotta.
I mean, think about this just real quick. If the engineer, this business is all about repeat clients. You know that, Dave.
Oh yeah.
It's about lifetime value of clients. So since the audio engineer is the gatekeeper, okay, they're not going to send on crappy audio to a producer. Just not going to happen, right? They're going to get this. What I shortlist by is audio quality first, and then I listen because I am also in the craft. I'm able to choose what I believe the best reads are and then forward them. Now, think about it from the audio engineer's perspective. This person has 10 or 12 things on their plate going all the time. These guys live a very, very stressful life. Lots of roll aids, the whole 9 yards. Okay. Now, when a producer comes to them and says, "Hey, what do you think about that Dave cat?" And they're like, "Dave Fennoy, the dude who sent in the audio that I just put it over the track and it ran? Yeah, that Dave Fennoy. Please hire him because you're making his
You're
life."
making his life easy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so he's going to recommend you every single time.
we're also in a world now where I can't tell you how many times, even though it's an MP3, my agent sends me a note or calls me and says, "Hey, you booked the gigs. Oh, when's the session?" Say, "Oh, they're just using your audition." Which
Had
is
that
why I
happen to me
also
too.
say to students, there are no such things as auditions. There are only performances. And so
Yeah,
you want your audition to be perfect. Got a question
yeah.
here. Michael Sessoms, is there a difference between a moving blanket and a sound blanket?
Yes, there is. A moving blanket is meant to keep other objects from being damaged while you're moving them. The owner of Vocal Booth To Go owned a moving company, and he got some comments about how his moving blankets were being used to reduce acoustics. And so he said, "Hey, wait a second, I see an opportunity here." And so he developed a patented sound blanket that he started developing, and this guy is so hardcore about what he does. I've been to Maryland to his shop to test each and every one of his booths, and I'm telling you, this guy's a friggin' maniac. I've been to the acoustic labs with him to test his products. This guy is absolutely obsessed with creating the absolute best products out there. And his blanket just recently passed over at Riverbank Studio over here in Geneva. I visited and watched the whole thing. A 20-point higher rating, which that's exponential. It may not mean much to everybody, but basically the translation is hugely and vastly greater than the next performer who creates sound blankets. All right. So when you see one of these so-called moving blankets or sound blankets folded up on a table, if I said, "Hey Dave, would you grab that moving blanket for me?" and you went over there, you'd pick it up, be thinking one thing, but here's what would come out of you. Oof. I mean, they're heavy, bro.
Yeah, yeah.
They're
I
heavy, and they do their job. They cut 10 dB. So if you got 10 dB going out with a voice like yours out into the room, and it's got to scatter around in the room and then try to come back into the booth, being cut by another 10 dB, that's 20 dB round trip. It's huge, and the acoustics with these blankets are fantastic.
yeah.
Yeah.
And somebody mentioned, and I've scrolled past it now,
Hmm.
theater curtains. Not just any curtains, but thick theater curtains, which one of the things about them is they should be hung in folds.
Yes, and the reason that they should be hung in folds is because you are now creating displacement of sound, and there's a big difference between diffusing and displacing sound and just simply absorbing it. Okay, so the more you can displace sound, that's why the pyramid foam is pyramid shaped and not just straight flat foam, is because it's scattering the sound, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
uh, think of sound as being water. If it were to hit a flat surface, it would come right back at you. But if it were to hit a pyramid-shaped surface, it would go all over the place, and that's what you want, because you're the mic, right? You don't want water coming back at the mic. That's the idea behind it. All right. So when it comes to theater curtains, again, this is one of those things where it depends, and I'll give you a good example. Go to a fairly inexpensive hotel. Do they have the blackout curtains that are, are pleated or whatever you want to call it? Sure. Are they blocking as much sound as the $500 hotel room? No way. Because those sound curtains are real theater curtains, right?
Yeah.
They're the real deal. Okay.
You want that real thick velour.
You want the big time stuff in order to disperse. But again, if it's not blocking the sound, it's not blocking the sound. It may do you a lot of good acoustically, but without noise mitigation, they don't do you a whole lot of good.
Yeah. What would be on your list of reasonable microphones for a voiceover actor, from somebody just starting out to somebody who's been doing it for a while and they're looking to get that lifetime mic?
Okay. I love the Lewitt 4040 Pro, the LT 4040 Pro. It's on my website, again, on recommended equipment.
It's interesting. I saw one of those advertised today, and it looks interesting. And I tend to collect microphones that I use them a few times, and then they're just in a box. But that Lewitt, okay.
Yeah, well, here's the thing about the Lewitt. So they have $100 and something entry level mic. They contacted me. They're from Vienna, and they contacted me and said, "Hey, we'd like to send you 3 microphones and try them out." So I said, "Okay." So I tried out the $160 something mic, and I was like, "Hey, not bad." But then I had the Sub-Zero, which is it's the quietest mic in the world. You wouldn't believe how quiet this thing is, and it's got some features that its little brother, the 440, doesn't have. But I don't need the features. Okay, so the difference between $269 and $1,000 with a microphone that has the same exact diaphragm and the same exact circuitry. When I say circuitry, I mean aside from the little toys that you have on the Big Brother, the Sub-Zero. Okay, I was absolutely blown away by how great this $269 mic sounded. It's a large diaphragm microphone. It's very sensitive, just like any other large diaphragm condenser microphone. When we talk about condenser microphones, for anyone who's confused out there, the mic that I'm on right now is a condenser microphone. It's charged electrically with 48 volts, so it's very sensitive. This is a dynamic microphone. This is meant for stage.
Do not use dynamic microphone in your booth.
It depends. This is a new contender that I have right here. Yeah, it's something I'm going to be doing a review on. It's the Shure Beta 58A, and I was recently blown away by listening to someone in Singapore voice on this with just a 2i2. And I said, "Oh, you've got a cloud lifter in between you and that preamp." And cloud lifter, by the way.
The 2i2 is that Focusrite.
Yeah, and the cloud lifter is to just give dynamic mics that gain, since they're not electrified. But clean gain is the problem with dynamic mics, right? Whenever you boost them, they start to hiss. But I said, "You have a cloud lifter in order to do that?" And she said, "No cloud lifter." And it's a $169 mic. And I went, "Okay, I'm sorry, I don't believe it. I need to buy one myself." Bought it. I'm currently testing it. Mind blown.
Okay.
And it rejects
I would still recommend not trying to use the dynamic.
Well, you're not going to get the detail
out
of a dynamic microphone that you're going to get from a condenser microphone at the end of the day. So Dave's right.
But okay, that Lewitt, and I know the Rode NT1, a lot of people are using. I see it all the time with people who have just started and just been working a few years. What do you think of that mic?
Are you saying the NT1 or the NT1A?
Well, you know what? You tell me.
Okay, the NT1A is the mic that you get from Guitar Center, where those not on the know go in and say, "Hey, I'm getting into voiceover and I need an inexpensive package." The people there in Pro Audio mean well, so they recommend Pro Tools, which I don't for voiceover. It's like putting a jet engine on a Volkswagen. If you're used to using it, fine. But when you're just getting in, I wouldn't buy Pro Tools. It can be very confusing. And 2, they will recommend the NT1A. Well, that can be a good thing and it can be a bad thing. It can be a good thing if you're not sibilant, and it'll be the worst thing in the world if you have sibilance issues, because it has a frequency response on the top end that makes sibilance just sound like whistling. And that's what sibilant is. It's the whistle in the S that we're after, not the S, right?
Yeah.
And so people with an NT1A, and I hate delivering this news to people, but fortunately it's inexpensive enough to get into to where, you can change that out. Okay. But reality is it's usually females, because females speak differently than males. It's not a comment about females, but males tend to say their S's with a flat tongue. We emulate other males as we grow up, and that's just the way the physiology of it. And females will tend to purse their tongue and push it forward, purse it just a little bit at the front, and push it forward towards the back of their teeth, so you get a sharper S sound like this. Okay. And because of that, the NT1A responds to that in that frequency range, and you get that whistle, that heavy whistle. Now, the NT1, which is a different mic altogether, does not have the problems that microphone has. That being said, if you're going to get a new mic, I prefer the 440, the Lewitt 440 LT over the NT1 any day, because it seems to me that what Lewitt is doing is they're trying to get market share with an entry price on a mic and make it legendary, and then eventually raise the price. It's my best guesswork, because I don't understand how they can sell a mic that to me sounds as good as its big brother, which is $1,000, and sell it for $269. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So I think they might be trying to get market saturation or something. I'm not sure. But
So,
anyway,
a couple other mics on that list?
At this time, I'm going to say anything outside of something that you're forced into, like an SM7B, which is not a bad microphone, by the way. It's a great microphone. It's a $400 dynamic microphone, and you would need a cloud lifter, but it gives you the detail that you need from a dynamic microphone. It's one of the few exceptions. Again, $400 mic. You will need a cloud lifter, which is another $159 or so. And then, of course, you need an interface.
Let me throw a couple other mics at you. The AKG C214.
I like it and dislike it depending on the voice, right? But we're also talking about budgets here, because if you're talking affordable mics, if you just say, look, Tim, throw a couple mics out there, you know what the standard answer is going to be. Hey, get the 416 and the 103. Because I've never heard anyone that I've tuned who sounded bad on either of those.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So they're
very we're talking about $1,000 for the 416,
right?
And maybe and $1,200, $1,500 for the 103, or you can buy them used for about $750 or so.
Yeah, $750, and you can often get them just straight up $750 brand new with the discount code. But the problem is with a lot of mics is people will tell you, hey, this is the mic I use, and it's a great mic. Okay, so that doesn't really mean much, because that's their voice on that microphone.
Yeah.
Your voice on that microphone may not sound too good, and I'm going to hint at something: the great mic shootout for voiceover, which has never been done, which Dave, you and I have talked about, and I'll get into that more later. But here's the advice that I want to give everybody when it comes to choosing affordable mics: is listen to other voiceovers whose sound you really like, who have voices very similar to yours. And if you like the sound and their voice is similar, reach out to them, because as we all know, the VO community is incredibly helpful.
Absolutely. Okay? It's one of the best things about this biz.
Right. Listen for voices that sound like yours, and you like their sound, and you say, hey, how did you get to where you are? Okay. And then, just canvass the area until you find something that pleases you. But in the meantime, the only fault that I've found with the 440 that I mentioned earlier is it's a little strong in this area between 2 and 4K, which essentially in human terms means it's a little strong on the ch sound. But that's something that can be reduced in EQ easily enough, and I have many times, and people have been incredibly happy with the microphone.
Oh, okay.
So for $269, it's a total no-brainer. And on the other end of the spectrum, we have this package that's being sold from Focusrite for $200 and something, where you get the iTrack Solo, and you get a cord with it, and you get a microphone with it, and a pop filter and headphones. And at some point, common sense needs to kick in. If you know anything about microphones and interfaces, if it sounds too good to be true, it is.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So stay away from those types of packages as well.
Okay. And we're run out of time here, but what would you suggest as just a great package. Not the most expensive, but certainly not on the budget end for somebody doing voiceover.
Easy. Middle of the road would be the LT 440 Pro. Okay. And then I would get like an Audient ID 14, which is very clean, very dependable amp. And then I would get Mogami cords because they're quad shielded. All right. So they're expensive, but they're definitely worth
They're
it.
actually hard to get right now for
Are they?
some reason.
I didn't
Yeah.
know. Okay.
I saw an article the other day that somehow the pandemic has made it more difficult to get those made.
I haven't heard that. People have been ordering them through my recommended equipment site and getting
Okay.
them.
Well,
So
good.
this is
Good.
yeah, this is fairly new to me. I don't know, maybe B&H stocked up on them or something, but I would get that. And then for headphones, I would definitely get the Bear Dynamic 770 DT 770 Pro 80 ohm. Very important, 80 ohm. If you get the higher ohm ones, your preamp is not going to be able to push those drivers as hard as they need to be pushed. And if you get the 30 ohm, they're going to be pushed too hard. So Bear Dynamic, they're right here. Okay.
And you know what's
Right here.
interesting? I've always had pretty decent headphones, but I
Mhm.
never knew that I needed to make sure that I was getting them in 80 ohm.
Yeah, that's 80 ohm. What it comes down to is that's the amount of resistance that it's putting on the line.
Yeah.
How much impedance is there? So if you have a very low powered object like a iPhone or something like that, these are going to sound great on it because the impedance is very low.
Yeah.
If you put 240 on there or higher, you're not going to hear it very loud. You're not going to hear all of the tonality of it. Besides, as I always like to say, these headphones are like kittens hugging your ears. Very, very comfortable. You
Hopefully,
can
with
wear,
not their claws out.
and people who buy them always agree with me. They're like amazed, and they're fully enclosed so they don't bleed through to the mic. And so, and by the way, before we close, since it's an Ask Dave, I think that I should be able to ask you a question as well.
Uh-oh. Okay, go for it.
Okay. So I visited you down in Kankakee. We were both guests down there to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And I was in the audience watching your part, and you did this thing called 7 Ways to Die with a dynamic microphone. I want to make that clear, a dynamic microphone. Okay. I asked you two questions. One was, Dave, when you're having a really, really bad day and it's hard for you to get in the booth and get out of your head, how do you do it? Your response to me was, I have a job to do, and that's the bottom line.
Yeah.
And that was good enough for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this life lesson: live out of your commitments, not out of your feelings.
Love it, dude. That's awesome. That's
So
awesome.
Benjamin Franklin, I think, said long ago, the work of the world is mostly done by people who don't feel very well. I got
Well said.
I got
Well,
one more question I
well,
want to.
well, hang on, because I got part two.
Okay,
Part two,
part
if you
two.
don't mind. The 7 ways to die. You showed people you getting stabbed, you getting shot, you getting strangled, you drowning, you getting run over by a car. I don't remember what the other two were.
Eaten by a dinosaur,
Eaten by a dinosaur. Okay,
and poisoned.
and poisoned. Okay,
Yeah.
so there are the 7. All right. Here's what I saw, and here's the big the big takeaway for everyone, depending on how you answer this, because what I saw blew my mind. Okay. Now, first, I mentioned to you when you played, what was the character that you played in Walking Dead that won all those
Lee
awards?
Everett. Lee Everett.
Lee Everett. Okay, so I had heard about this video game, and I told you about that, and I said, I'm hearing about all these grown men cry, and I don't believe it, so I'm going to go play the video game. And of course, I'm there on the couch doing this, and my wife's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm not crying or anything." When I watched it, so well done on that. And then I went into, look, I don't understand the 7 ways to die, man. Like when you did what you did with a dynamic microphone, I want to point that out. Dynamic microphone, okay, wireless. Because what I saw is I watched Dave die 7 different ways, and he went somewhere. I don't know where he went, but that's my question for you. You made everything absolutely 100% believable, and I want to know, where did you go?
Well, I like to keep that childlike joy of imagination and play, and I go to that place of I'm not being judged. I am giving myself to the character and the situation. I don't. It's not a try to do. It's a just do. Respond. Don't get too in your head. Just oh, and there you go.
Yeah.
What would it be like if I'm being eaten? I'll take the dinosaur because I've used this a few times. I will say, okay, you're being eaten, and they'll go, "Ah!" And I go, okay, well, now let's make it bigger. You and your friends are running from this dinosaur, and you tripped and fell. Now the dinosaur's got you, and as he's chomping down, you're seeing your friends get away, and then he opens his mouth to chomp again, and you think you might be able to get away, but no, he chomps, and the blood is gurgling. That's how I put it together in my mind. So I kind of choreograph it. And
Amazing.
I truly believe that every voiceover needs to be choreographed. What's the scene? Who am I? Who am I talking to? What's my worldview? What's the action that's going on? More so, of course, in animation and video games. But the same holds true with just about everything else.
Well, it was the most vulnerable thing I'd ever seen in my entire life. I just wanted to ask where you go, and it sounds like where you go is to that place. So my question's been answered. So thank you very much.
Well, you're welcome. This is a student of mine, Theodore, and he's got a very deep, unique East Coast voice. It's just amazing. What mic would you recommend for someone with a very deep voice?
Whew. Okay, so I get hired for two things usually. I don't know what you get hired for. But this mic, the 416, has a great amount of ability to handle low end range. So does my 103. I usually get hired for inspirational or some form of badassery, depending. I use this one more for the badassery and the 103 for the
the
more
inspiration.
inspirational stuff. Yeah, exactly, because it has all
We're
that
getting
deep.
hired for a lot of the same stuff.
Yeah, right. So what I'm going to tell you is this, man. The best mic for you is more than likely going to be one of those two. I'm going to take a risk here and say that, but the emphasis really needs to be on your acoustics, because when you're a boomer, okay, and I don't mean age group, I'm talking about your voice. When you're a boomer, your room is going to respond a lot more than someone who has a higher voice. So if you're using a 103, but which is an extremely sensitive mic, but your acoustics aren't good, you're going to get in trouble. Less so than you would on a 416, because a 416 rejects a lot of what's happening on the side, right? It's not going to pick up as much acoustics. So I would say priority number one is make sure that your acoustics are fantastic, and then could you get on a 103 or the 416? Absolutely. Try out the Lewitt 440, man. You'd be surprised the sonic range of that microphone. It's amazing. So it's
Yeah.
really about the acoustics at the end of the day, and then the mic when it comes to deep voices. In my
Yeah.
personal opinion.
There you go. Well, I have kept you overtime.
That's
Thank
fine.
God I don't have to pay you.
Wait, this isn't a paid gig? My agent told me.
Oh yeah, well, let me hang up real quick.
Confused.
No, but seriously, Tim, thank you so much. Now we're at
My
the
pleasure.
end of this year, and sometime in the next year, I'm going to want to have you on again. Just a wealth of information, and you're such a good guy. And I just want to thank you. And I've, just looking at the comments here, so many people have taken your course and are co-signing on it.
Awesome.
One quick question: how do you feel about the UA Apollo twins? A thumbs up
Nothing
or thumbs?
better.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing better. Okay.
Nothing.
Great.
If I had 3 thumbs, there'd be 3 up right now. Yeah.
But I think a lot of people from this are going to take your course, and I'm not saying that to because you're going to get some money out of it. You're offering such value. You're offering such information that so many people need, including myself. There's so many things that I know I'm very good at, have an answer for, just like that. Technically, there's a limitation there. I can do as much as I need to do, but there's more I could learn. And just the way you tuned up my studio, which already sounded great.
Mm,
Uh, uh,
mm.
just the changes you made just pushed it up a little better,
Yeah,
just
we
a little
just took
bit
you
more.
next level, man, and that's my mission is to get the truth out there, to get people enabled, and, you know what, man? I found a way to monetize it and help people. It doesn't get any better than that.
That's what we call a win-win.
There you go.
Once
Love it, man.
again, your site is.
It is VOTechGuru.com, and for anyone who wants to reach out to me, you can reach me at info@VOTechGuru.com.
Well, there we have it. I'm going to say goodbye and really appreciate it. And to everybody else, next week, there will be no Ask Dave Fennoy anything, as a matter of fact, for the next 2 weeks. So I will see you all in the new year. Wishing a very Merry Christmas to you. Happy holidays, Happy Hanukkah for those who are in the midst of celebrating that.
You know?
And let's look forward to a much better 2021 than 2020. All right.
Yes, indeed.
Bye bye, y'all.
Bye.